Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is your ultimate guide to Liberty Falls, covering everything you need to know about the map, from some of the new Black Ops 6 features, like SAM trials, and going all the way through to the new bosses in the game, and even some Easter eggs. There are chapter markers linked on screen as well, which you can use to click through to the parts of the video that are relevant for you. To start with, I'd recommend the Marine Shotgun as your loadout weapon. This thing you unlock pretty damn quickly, and it's just really strong. It's very solid, it reloads pretty fast, and especially if you manage to double or triple pack-a-punch it, it really delivers a lot of firepower in a single shot, or round, or shell, or whatever they're called. Also, you unlock Energy Mine straight away when you start playing the game, and you should really make use of this while you're playing. It's good for just wave clear in sketchy situations. It's not something that I would use indefinitely, but just to begin with when you're getting started with the game, this is a good pick. Now, for Pack-a-Punch, it's very simple. Once you spawn into the map, you need to follow the orange markers, and those are going to show you the buyable doors that you need to traverse through. And once you've bought a couple of doors, it's about 3 doors, you'll get to the church, and you then need to buy the door of the church and enter it, and the Pack-a-Punch will be waiting for you inside. It costs 5,000, 15,000, and then 30k to go from Pack-a-Punch level 1 to Pack-a-Punch level 3. But even just tier 1 pack is good for the first, let's say, 15 to 20 rounds of the game. For perks, Juggernog is located in the savings and loan area on the West Main Street. Quick Revive is in Ollie's Comics near Backstreet Parking. Speed Cola is in Washington Avenue. Stamina Up is in Fuller's Liberty Lanes on the West Main Street. Melee Macchiato is in the forecourt area. PhD Flopper is on the hilltop stairs leading up to the church. And Der Wonder Fizz, which contains all of the perks, is on the Alamo. And the Wonder Fizz spawns in on round 25 and onwards. And you need to access the Alamo through the zip lines that you can take from the church. There are also other perks available on the map though. For example, Deadshot and Elemental Pop, but you can get those through the Wonder Fizz or from Vault Rewards or SAM Trials, and we'll talk about those Vault Rewards in a moment. Now, Gobblegum are a new thing in Black Ops 6 Zombies, having been brought back from Black Ops 3. They work slightly differently in this game, but you get a free Gobblegum awarded to you as you progress through the rounds. So if you ever see that spinning in the center of your screen, that's you getting a new Gobblegum, which is great news. And you can hit the Gobblegum machines, which are located all over the map, to use those gobbles that you're getting, and they'll go into one of your Gobblegum packs. Locations for those include the Motor Lodge, Main Street, Washington Avenue, and the Hilltop area. Now, another returning feature from a previous Zombies is armor. There's no armor dummy like there was in Cold War Zombies, but instead now there are level 2 armor vests that you can buy on the wall for 4,000 points, and level 3 armor vests that you can buy for 10,000 points. The level 2s are blue, the level 3s are purple. And you can go to, for example, Ollie's Comics to buy yourself a level 2 armor in Liberty Falls, or you can go to the cemetery area and buy yourself a level 3. Because you can only hold up to 3 armor at a time, it's advisable to try and get yourself at least tier 2 armor reasonably early in your game, so I think that that is money well spent. The 10,000 upgrade is a little bit more expensive, really, and so it's not something that I would buy straight away. I wouldn't buy that over upgrades to your firepower, for example, but certainly once you start getting to maybe round 25 or higher, that's when, if you don't have tier 3, I would really strongly recommend making that purchase. Crafting is also back from Cold War, and for this, you're going to be using Salvage. Now, Salvage works slightly differently to Cold War because previously, you didn't use Salvage to buy your ammo mod upgrades, for example, whereas now you do. But ammo mods are not contained within the crafting bench, so usually you're used to spending your salvage at that bench, but now you need to go to an arsenal machine in order to get your ammo mods, and the crafting bench is strictly limited to equipment and score streaks. Locations for the crafting bench are Backstreet Parking, Motor Lodge Alley, and Groundkeeper's Yard. And you can also get yourself self-revives crafted from the crafting bench as well, but you're limited to how many self-revives you can use in-game now, unlike in Cold War. So I mentioned the Arsenal machine, right? The Arsenal machine is where you put your ammo mods on, but it's also where you now upgrade the rarity of your weapon. And weapon rarity makes a big difference to the amount of damage that you do in Black Ops 6 Zombies, so it's worth really paying attention to. However, later in the video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about optimizing your loadout to make sure you're doing the most DPS at every point in the game. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video, there's these new things called SAM trials. these will spawn in to a given location, and you can then go over to them and hold square. And once you accept the SAM trial, it will give you a task. For example, kill 40 zombies using hipfire in a certain amount of time. Things like that. Once you finish the timer, you'll have gotten a level of reward from the activity. So you might get a rare, or you might get an epic, or you might get a legendary. And these basically just increase the firepower that you're going to get if you're getting a gun as a reward, or the rarity of the equipment that you get. So for example, a lower rarity reward might be a decoy grenade, whereas a higher rarity reward might be a Casimir grenade. And the reward crate itself will spawn in just near to where you were doing the trial itself. Now, like I said, you can also get some pretty cool weapons from doing those trials, and you can get wonder weapons as well. So let's talk about wonder weapons. On Liberty Falls, the wonder weapon is the Thrusterdyne M23. It is the jet gun. And this thing, luckily for us, can actually be obtained straight out of the mystery box. It does not have to have a quest that you do in order to get it and to unlock a whole bunch of secrets first, and then you can get the wonder weapon. No, you can just go ahead and get it out of the mystery box. And it works very similarly to how the jet gun worked on Transit. However, it isn't going to explode. So the jet gun on Transit exploded. This one doesn't. But this one does have an alternate fire type, and that alternate fire means you can send out a kind of pulse, and so you kind of get the benefit of the explosion without actually losing the weapon. It does, of course, also have a normal suction mode as well, which is really useful. It's very powerful, and it also allows you to pick up things like salvage by using that as well. Now, there is a side quest to unlock this Easter egg as well, and that is linked in the corner of the screen right now and in the description also. Now, talking about Easter eggs, there are 3 headphone locations around the map that you can use to trigger a music Easter egg. The first headphone location is in the church on the pews to the left when entering. The second is beside the bank as soon as you come up the steps. The third is between the motel and the bowling alley. And once you hit that third one, you'll have an Easter egg song play, and it sort of sounds like Evanescence. It's actually really cool. There's Vermin Rounds on Liberty Falls, and these work pretty similar to dog rounds in the past, except it's just these flying bugs. These things are really annoying, so be careful. There's a lot of them, and they do pretty decent damage, so just be mindful of that. And speaking of special zombie types, there's also manglers on the map, which you'll first start seeing around round 10 or 11, and when you kill them, you can actually pick up the mangler cannon from eliminated manglers, so long as you focus your firepower on the mangler arm, which it's a weak point for. When you do that, you'll then be able to use the mangler cannon and fire mangler shots at zombies, which is pretty awesome. And there's also mutant injections this year, which are these new special equipments that you can use to turn into a mangler and kill zombies that way for a little bit. Alongside manglers, there's abominations, and these will spawn in around round 15 or so. And there's also just regular armored zombies and tubby zombies and stuff like that as well, and they'll start spawning around round 9. As far as traps go, there are Dark Ether field generators all over the map, and these will dissolve zombies with Dark Ether energy, and they're pretty good. They cover quite a large area, and so as traps go, they're pretty damn effective. And the electricity can also slow players if you walk inside that area, so you got to be careful of that. They're located in the Motor Lodge area and also on Hill Street as well. Another trap is the Aetherella trap, and this one zaps zombies with Aetherella's laser. This will hurt the player if you go through the laser or if you get beamed by it, so be careful. It's located in Ollie's comics, and it costs 1,500 essence. I personally think this is one of the coolest traps in the game. It even talks to you. It's awesome. Another thing that's coming back this year is Exfilling, so you can call this in from the beginning of East Main Street right next to spawn. The Exfil location, once called in, is on West Main Street or on the Alamo. So just make your way over to that location, kill zombies, wait for the chopper to arrive, and then you can hop in and get out, and you'll get some extra XP and stuff like that for doing so. But it's optional. You can also just bleed out and you'll still get XP by doing it that way too. Now, speaking of optional things, something that you guys might want to experiment with is another Easter egg, which is this vault combination situation. So the numbers for the vault combination can be located on pieces of paper around the map. The number locations include the front desk in the savings and loan building right in front of the vault. Another one is on a shelf under the cash register in Ollie's comics. And the third is in Fuller's Liberty Lanes on the bar table under an ice bucket. And I think this one needs to be shot or meleeed or something like that in order to become fully visible. If there's any extra areas here, that I haven't included, I'll make sure to include those in the description as well. And once you've got those codes, you can go over to the massive vault and enter the combination. And once you do so, it will open up and allow you to step inside. Now, it's going to be timed when you're inside, and you'll have about 35 to 40 seconds. And if you've grabbed a key from, for example, a boss zombie, like an Abomination or a Mangler, you can then bring the key into the vault and use it to then unlock one of the safe deposit boxes and take the loot out of inside. Now, you get different key rarities through your game, so I would recommend only doing this once you start getting purple or above keys. I wouldn't do it with green or blue, it's just not worth it. And you do have a limited number of vault combinations that you can use, so once you've gotten through a whole bunch of keys in your game, there's not going to be a lot of space left in the vault for you to loot. So just save it for when it starts to get a bit more valuable, and you can get some really good stuff from that as well. So this is a very minimal Easter egg, but it has pretty big consequences if you do those higher rarity upgrades, because you can get gold weapons from it, you can get the ray gun from it, you can get all sorts of other, whether it's wonder weapons or high value items, chopper gunners, etc. So it's really worth paying some attention to as your game progresses. Now, another thing to pay attention to as the game progresses is your wall buys and the mystery box. So wall buys will increase in rarity as the game goes on, so they'll start off and they'll suck, but by round 25 or so, many of them will have gotten a lot better. And you'll also start seeing that the likelihood of gold weapons in the mystery box increases a huge amount as you get later into your game. This means that it's not necessarily worth spinning the box at round 3, but instead it's worth saving your money and then spinning at round 10 or round 15 if you can, and if you have a decent weapon at that point already that you're using, because that way you're much more likely to get something that you can use for longer. But how exactly do these weapon rarities work? Well, it's similar to Cold War, but it has changed a little bit. And this is going to be the section of the video where I talk about your overall DPS and the best way to kind of make sure that you're being efficient with your weapons at any given round. So the first upgrade that I would personally look for in a match is not upgrading the loadout weapon that you start with necessarily, but actually it's looking for another gun that is higher rarity. And the reason for that is you can usually find one of these guns very easily just dropping on the floor, whether it's from zombies that you kill around the map in the sort of scripted events, or if it's from a SAM trial or something like that. You can usually get a blue weapon pretty fast from that, and that's going to be a much bigger power bump, and it's going to mean that you're not going to need to spend 5,000 points, which you might want to spend on perks initially, on pack-a-punching a grey rarity weapon. So initially, I think that's the move. I think that looking for a blue weapon somewhere is a good idea. Now, as you progress through the game and you start getting better loadout weapons and stuff like that, of course, then you could start saying, well, my grey rarity weapon is still OP compared to the blue ones around the map, so I'm going to stick with that, and that's totally fine. But just to begin with here, I'd say weapon rarity is a significantly important thing that you should really be paying attention to. And I then say it's a good idea to think about pack-a-punching and spending 5k on that pack-a-punch on the blue rarity weapon potentially. Now, don't do it if the weapon itself sucks ass. You might as well do it on the grey rarity if that's kind of what you're dealing with. But if your weapon's at least half decent, pack-a-punch the higher rarity weapon. And the reason for this is that in order to boost the rarity of a weapon, you're gonna need to spend salvage, or you're gonna need to do side quests. Side quests take a bunch of time, and salvage takes a bunch of rounds in order to farm enough to actually get meaningful rarity upgrades. So it's gonna start off and it's gonna cost something like 500 salvage to go from grey to green. Then it's going to cost even more to go from green to blue, and then blue to purple, and then blue to gold. And all of that salvage could easily be spent elsewhere on other things, especially if you intend to buy self-revives for 1,500 in your game. It just gets expensive. So it's really a good idea to try and start with as high a rarity weapon as you can. I'd say that once you've got maybe purple rarity, it's not essential to upgrade to orange straight away. Like, you can absolutely afford to do this later in the game, maybe past round 30 potentially. And at that point, you're going to have a lot more points as well. So I would sort of say indexing for as high a rarity as possible in your first 10 rounds is a good idea, but then it starts to sort of move back in favor of Pack-a-Punch from that point. And so then I'd say, yeah, getting your like tier 2 pack, for example, is a really, really good idea. For ammo mods, I would recommend using Dead Wire. That's a really solid one for just stunning the zombies. It just makes life a little bit easier for you. But honestly, this comes down to personal preference. I don't think that there is one absolute essential one right now. So just use what feels good for you and the type of loadout that you're running. But keep in mind that different ammo mods do have different cooldowns. So Brain Rot ammo mod, for example, is going to take a lot longer to cool down. down compared to something like Cryo Freeze, which pops more often. Now, with that stuff said, let's talk about a strat for the map so that you guys can get to your high rounds here. There's lots of open areas, admittedly, on Liberty Falls, and so that means that in terms of just basic hoarding, rounds 1 to 10 or 10 to 20, you can do it in several areas. The spawn is a great option. Near the church is another good option. Like, there's really just a lot of space. However, if you're doing it near the church, one of the benefits that you'll have is that there's a bunch of vehicles that you can use there to clamber over and mantle, and that's going to stagger the zombies for just a moment, which is actually quite a nice thing, so long as you don't get caught on them. That's something you have to be very careful of. Compared to that, if you're in the spawn, there's vehicles you can maneuver around, but it's a little bit more open, and so you can just run around there in general without feeling too much pressure, to be honest. Another strat for earlier rounds is to head to Liberty Lanes, because that is a big open room. The difficulty with Liberty Lanes is that there's basically no clear exit if you're really deep down the lanes and you've got zombies coming from all directions. But because the room is so large, it's generally quite easy to just hoard the zombies up in there as you go. Now, as you get to your higher rounds, I'd recommend really making sure that you're using a wonder weapon of some kind. It can be the ray gun Pack-a-Punched, it could be the jet gun Pack-a-Punched, etc. And you're keeping a very close eye on your armor at all times. And I really think that you can kind of hoard pretty much anywhere up to the 40s or 50s on this map with just a wonder weapon, as long as you're really prioritizing making sure that your armor stays topped up. Now, with all that said, if you're struggling to get to those high rounds, I've got a really in-depth high round guide for this map that is linked on screen right now. So if you want to crush some personal bests, that's the video that you should click. It's also linked in the description down below. I'll see you there.